Today's episode is brought to you by Forvis Mazars.
Sound Cartel.
From Sound Cartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Mental health is a worsening issue across the globe, with clear impacts on the workplace. There's a lot of opportunity, though, for each of us to download one of the traditional self-help apps and work on improving our state of mind. But what if there was something a little more inclusive? Shane Muller is founder of SafeWatch, an app that acts as a wellbeing companion, based on the core idea that it takes a village. As a result, the app enables networks of family, friends and colleagues to provide support and build resilience to those that need it. SafeWatch can also be tailored for the individual, workplace and practitioner use. So how was it developed, and what does Shane think about the current state of the mental health crisis so many of us seem to be in? He explains to Jeff Waters.
Well, in 2019, I was reviewing the landscape, Jeff. When it comes to mental wellness, much of the stories and the statistics I was looking at tied to young people, middle-aged people, people in the workforce. And I realized that these statistics were showing a very scary downward trend of people not feeling too good. And the statistics really looked quite dire with this compounding effect and this gathering of larger and larger groups of people not feeling good when it comes to mental wellness. So it was because of that, together with these stories I read about people that unfortunately at the very extreme end of mental wellness, if things got very dire and they chose to exit life, I noticed that people around them often would say a phrase similar to, "I had no idea." Or an alternate version would be, a colleague might say, "I really didn't think it was that bad."
Or "I didn't see that coming. They didn't seem as bad as suicidal." And that, of course, is a face that a lot of people who are struggling put on in the workplace.
Absolutely. And this was in 2019, before things hit us all with COVID and multiplied these statistics, unfortunately. This was actually quite a dire situation back then.
So what are you doing about it, Shane?
So I set out, Jeff, to deal with it as best as I could with reference to mental wellness. And using my craft, which is business and technology, we set out to determine how we could use technology and business that we know to shift the dial on mental wellness. Now, in doing that, we realized that there are about 20,000 plus apps on the marketplace. It's a very crowded place right now in this space. Most of the apps are designed for the person or individual who's struggling. Our research, when we spent that first year researching this, we found a few things. When someone is struggling, let's say 10 is great and it's green, in the middle it's 5 and orange, and if someone's really bad, it's 1 and it's red at the bottom of the scale. Well, we found when someone starts to err towards the bottom, they themselves lose interest and motivation to help themselves. So all of these pieces of technology or apps designed to self-help someone, that's good typically when someone's above the better area of the scale and not when they're below the area, because when they're below this point, even having a health professional or someone with them, they're just not motivated. They're rather sleeping all day in bed. So we decided to address this very differently and not initially focus on the person, the individual themselves, but instead what differentiates SafeWatch in one element is we've designed SafeWatch for people who care. Because what we found that people who care will go through great lengths and pay a far greater price for the person that they care than the person who's struggling themselves. So those carers could be a professional carer. Australia has over 2.6 million of them. Or there's also what I like to call relational carers, be it a spouse, a best mate, a friend, who will literally pay a much higher price for the person that they're caring for than the person who's struggling. So we've aimed this at the people who are caring to help support this army of people around them to collectively aid the person who needs keeping an eye on and caring for.
Now, Shane, before we go on, here at Business Essentials Daily, it's very easy for us to slide down the slippery slope of turning our program into an advertisement for different initiatives or products or ideas. So we couch things as business advice for small businesses most of the time. However, every now and then we come across a product or a service that strikes us as being worthy of being promoted. So that's why we're concentrating today on this episode on SafeWatch. Now, we're particularly interested in what you said, not so much about the health professionals, because sometimes they're very busy and difficult to reach, but particularly on the relationship with your friends or your family and how it works for them. So how does it work? Do you approach your family and friends and say, hey, look, I'm getting this app. Can you join me?
Essentially, how it works is a person who, let's start with a person who cares for a friend, colleague, neighbor, etc. The person themselves downloads the app and gets themselves set up. Then they would approach, like you said, the person that they're caring for and say, hey, could I connect with you? I really want to stay close to you. I want to, we can keep an eye mutually on how each other are going. That's often a very non-threatening way of actually connecting with people. It's similar to being a gym buddy. Why don't we both go to the gym? I'll do my sets of reps, then we'll take turns. You do your sets of reps. And, we can both stay in this together as opposed to, hey, you're really struggling. I'm totally okay. I want to keep an eye on you. That doesn't necessarily go down that well with anybody, if not most people.
Sure. And I suppose you can approach it to go to a group of your friends and say, at a dinner party, introduce this idea and say, look, if we all get this app, we can all look after each other and keep an eye on each other. Is that what's happening? Is that how it's being applied?
That's essentially the objective that we have, Jeff, with the app. So with reference to the platform, we've founded it on what we call the village concept. The app allows each and every individual to download it and start to build their own personal and private village. So people in my village would be different to John Smith or Mary Jane or whomever out there that we're talking about. So within one's village, they will connect to people that they care for. They would also connect with people who may be able to help them. Some people do have a health professional or a practitioner who can help them. They will be able to connect with head of people and culture, if that role exists within the organization. They'll be able to connect to external community or care community providers, if that too is part of this. So it essentially allows people to build their private village. That's the first point. The second one, we've found through our research that sometimes people can be tracking along on good, or let's just say average, but when something hits them in whatever manner, they could very suddenly drop to a 1 or 2 into the red zone. And that happens for most people out there. Now, what we have found is when someone drops to a 2, it sounds a bit bad, but it's almost too late to go build your village then, because you really need that. It's too late to go look for the parachute on a sudden steep descent. You need to have it at hand and actually be used to using that concept of the village. So we've developed this for people to use it as a lifestyle app, to use this all the time to check in on how you're going and check in on how others are going, and on a regular basis.
That was Shane Muller, founder of SafeWatch. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at Sound Cartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast.
Sound Cartel.
This episode was brought to you by Forvis Mazars. To find out more, visit forvismazars.com/au. That's FORVISMAZARS.com/au.